Hey everybody, welcome back. Today is a special day for me. I'm going to do something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and that is compare the Warm Audio 1073 WA73 EQ against the Heritage Audio HA73 EQ and see what some of the similarities and differences are. First, just a little disclaimer, this is only going to be on drums. That's all I do for a living, so unfortunately no vocals, no bass, no guitar, but I am going to try these out on the kick drum and on the snare drum. So let's get started. So right out of the gate, some of the immediate physical differences are that the Warm Audio is a little bit of a larger unit. I would assume this is because it's got like the power unit inside and then it's just an IEC cable on the back. With the Heritage Audio, it's a little shorter, and then the power cable is one of those little DC inputs with the brick and then the IEC cable. Not a big deal to me, but I could imagine if you're bringing these on the road and they're in a road case or you're shuffling them around from studio to studio, that could be an issue. Not a big deal for me. The Warm Audio has an XLR input on the front and the back. The Heritage only has an XLR input in the back. The Warm also has additional insert sends and returns, as well as 1/4-inch line inputs and outputs on the back. The Heritage only has an XLR input for the mic and an XLR input for the line input, and then a single XLR output. They both have a 1/4-inch DI on the front. They both have phantom power, phase, line level, instrument level. The Heritage has a pad and the Warm doesn't, and I found this particularly useful when tracking. I'm not exactly sure what the amount, like in terms of dB, that it lessens it, the pad. I would assume, I don't know, 10 dB. The Warm has a tone button, which is really cool, but not really applicable to what I'm doing today with the kick and snare drum. It's really cool because it, plays with the impedance of the input, and it's a cool feature depending on what mic you're using. Like if you're doing some sensitive, ribbon mic recording, that's really cool, but just I'm not gonna be listening to that today. In terms of like what they feel like, the Heritage feels a little bit more robust. The Warm, although it's larger, I think it just feels like a little loose. Like both have the clicking EQ selections, which is really cool, but the gain knobs on the Heritage have a bit more resistance than the Warm. So when I go to adjust the EQ on the Warm, I can easily, knock the gain knob on the Warm versus the Heritage where it just stays in place. Not a huge deal, but just something to be aware of. A nice little feature on the Warm is that it's got a small light meter on the front, just so you can kind of view your input levels. Again, this isn't a huge deal to me because I'll normally monitor input levels on my converter or inside of Pro Tools, but still useful. And then they both have an EQ, engage, and bypass button. So let's dive into Pro Tools and have a listen. When setting up this video, I wanted to record the kick and the snare just through the preamp portion of the units, and then now I have them set up as hardware inserts inside of Pro Tools, so that way I can adjust them in real time and we can kind of listen to how the EQ affects each input. What I want to listen to first is just how I regularly record my drums. We're going to start with the kick drum, and right now I've got an SE Electronics SE8 as like my main kick drum mic. I think it sounds really great, kind of not traditional, but maybe it is, but I just think it's a great sound. It's going through a Rupert Neve 5015, and then it's going through a Midas 512 for some EQ. I've just got a little bump in the low end, some mid-low scoop, and then a little bit of presence at the top, and then it goes back into the 5015 for a little bit of compression. So here's what the drums sound like on their own. And now let me just solo the kick mic for you. So there's no plugins on. The only thing I really have going right now are just some bus EQ, the drum bus, and then the drum parallel bus, and then I've got a little light limiter here at the end of the chain. All right, now let's have a listen to the Warm Audio kick drum on its own, no processing. And now let's have a listen to the Heritage Audio. Pretty similar in my opinion. All right, now let's engage the Warm EQ. All right, I think that sounds pretty good. Let's do the same to the Heritage. Have a listen. All right, let's compare that back to the Warm. I think we're getting some nice signal out of the both of them, and then let's compare to the original. Yeah, not bad at all. All right, now let's hear the Warm in context with the rest of the kit. Yeah, sounds fantastic. Heritage. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting just the smallest amount of like lower, like sub-harmonic stuff from the Heritage. But the Warm is really keeping up. Something that I didn't mention in the beginning, I think what I really like about the Warm is that it's got the selectable frequency for the high shelf. On the Heritage, it's just a gain knob, and I'm not exactly sure. I could easily look it up. I'm not exactly sure where that's placed. I would guess it's probably around 10K. But both are really pleasing, and I'm really enjoying the sound. All right, so let's move on to the snare drum. I'm gonna play you what just my regular snare drum setup sounds like. Normally I have two mics on the top, but for this example, I'm just gonna only be playing the single SE8, which coincidentally is the same mic that's on the kick drum. So that's kind of cool to compare the two. Or I guess this one's an SE7. I have it mislabeled here. But let's listen to what it normally sounds like in my setup. And then let's have a listen to it on its own. And this is actually a fun comparison because my normal chain for this snare top is through the BAE 1023 1066, which is similar to the WA73 and the HA73. So this will actually be kind of a triple comparison. Granted, this mic is going through the BAE and then through a DBX 560 compressor, but we'll still get to hear some of those sonic differences. So let's have a listen to the Warm Audio snare top with just the preamp, nothing, no EQ engaged. Yeah, it sounds like the drum. It sounds like the Gretsch hand-hammered chrome over brass. Or I guess this isn't the hand-hammered, but it's a chrome over brass snare drum. Let's see what the Heritage Audio sounds like. I mean, they both sound really good. It's almost like... it's just tough for me personally to hear a difference. So let's just have a listen to, I want to have a listen to the first one again to compare to the BAE. So this is with the BAE's EQ engaged and then obviously the DBX compressor. But all right, now I'm going to engage the Warm Audio EQ for this snare drum. Cool. I think that sounds good. Let's have a listen to the Heritage. Okay, I think those all sound great. I do find it interesting that in my Warm Audio moves, I ended up at around 700 for the cut. And then in the Heritage, I ended up around 360 for the cut. Something to make note of. It looks like I don't make that cut at all on the 1066, so that's interesting. Let's hear all of this in context. So let's first listen to the BAE in the whole kit. And now the Warm Audio. I guess the first thing that I notice is the tuning dropping a little bit, which is why some of the sustain seems like those are a little less consistent than normal, but that's okay. And then let's have a listen to the Heritage. Wow. Well, between those two units, I don't think I could do a blind test and tell you which is which I think is incredible. And I also think that even comparing it to the BAE, it's a very tough call. All three of those sound absolutely fantastic, specifically in regards to their EQ qualities. Wow, what a fun thing to get to compare. You can tell I've never really done this before and critically thought this out loud, but wow, that's really cool. And same thing goes for the kick tracks as well. I would choose any one of these. Just fantastic. Anyways, hopefully that was of some sort of help. Here I am kind of speechless. I got really nothing to say, but I think any one of those would be a great choice for those inputs. Obviously, there are going to be more detailed tests, more scientific studies on the differences of these two. I'm just not the one to offer those to you, but I do love getting to hear them and getting to hear them in context, and I think any one of them would be a great choice. Obviously, be thinking about the application that it's for, because maybe this is right for kick and snare, but it won't be right for the toms, or it might not be right for the overheads, or if you're going into other territories like vocal chain or a bass chain or guitar chain or whatever it might be, there might be larger differences than just listening to them on a kick or a snare drum. Anyways, all that to say, thanks for stopping by. Special shout out to Zounds.com for sending me these two units. If you need any musical gear, they've got it all. Check them out. I'll see you in the next video.